Hello, welcome to Wizard Kid. Today we're covering chapters 7, Mudbloods and Murmurs, and the strangely irrelevant chapter 8, the Deathday Party.
Yeah, that one's just kind of bridging stuff together.
Yeah, kind of. It kind of flows into chapter 9, which we'll cover next time, but chapter 7 at least provides some, like, interesting context for...
Spiciness.
Yeah, it kind of spells out some of the stuff that had been set up a little bit more subtly earlier in the book with blood purity and stuff, so which obviously continues to be an important element of the story for the rest of the book. But yeah,
Yeah,
I suppose we can get straight into it. You have the first note.
yeah, as always, I have to start with the uninteresting section. It's the part that nobody looks forward to. So we have the stuff that did get changed between editions. It's mad, it became it's ridiculous. Don't remember the context. Who gives a crap? Hagrid, Hagrid is giving them some kind of like snack that apparently cements Harry's jaw together, which just sounds deeply uncomfortable. And it is treacle toffee in the original and treacle fudge in the American version, even though treacle is apparently like,
Molasses.
yeah, like we've talked about that one before. It's kind of a weird case. Here's a very strange case of wording changing. When Ron was having to clean a trophy, like with Filch, he pukes slugs up onto it, and the wording was originally "shift the slime off of it," or something. Like I don't know the full sentence. It says
I think it
"shift
was
the
fine.
slime," but then it changed to "get the slime off." Like, what the hell do you mean shift? You had a comment on peaky.
Yeah, so like, I mean, you've mentioned a bunch of different British words that I kind of like gloss over, and then I go back and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that means. This time, I actually noticed it said that I think Ginny was looking
Yeah,
a bit
Ginny was
peaky.
looking peaky.
Was looking peaky, and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? So I look it up, and it's like, pale and sickly. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, is this just me? Because like, obviously, I talk to a lot of Americans. I'm like, maybe I'm just like completely out of the loop with British terminology. So I asked my sister. She's obviously also not British by birth, but she's lives here and is definitely has more of a social life than me and talks to people in real life. So I'm like, have you heard this word before? What do you think peaky means? And she's like, I don't know. So yeah, neither of us knew what it meant.
That one just changed to pale. Just so I don't have to bring it up again later. I also questioned. There's a part where Harry was keen to get to lunch or something, and I'm like, that sounds really British. I don't think anybody would say that in the U.S., but
I don't
yeah.
think it's explicitly British, but yeah.
Because I even looked up, like, is that British slang? And I found this article that mentioned something about, like, oh, you can be, like, being keen on someone is the same as fancying them. And I'm like, fancying someone also sounds British. I don't know, like,
I haven't heard
but
Americans say that.
anyway, I love this next one. Describing the Slytherin Quidditch team flying around. In the U.S. version, it's flying around like green missiles. It was originally jump jets. The fuck is a jump jet?
I don't know. I assume a type of plane, like because it says jet.
I
I
guess.
don't know.
For some reason, he's got flu got changed to he's got the flu. And here's one that always stood out to me. Because when Hermione is talking about Moaning Myrtle for the first time, like, and Harry and Ron don't know who she is, she says, like, it's really terrible, like, okay, so I'll tell the U.S. version first because I thought that this was just weird wording even from the beginning. She says, like, it's terrible trying to have a pee with her wailing in the stall next to you, and like I even specifically remembered that wording because I'm like, have a pee, like, does anybody say that? Like, you would
You know
say,
what it is? Is I think sometimes the localizers will actually take out a Britishism, like go to the loo in this case, which is the British term
yeah,
used here. I think they replace it with something else that they're like, this sounds British, but I think more Americans will get what it is, or something like that.
I guess. Like, just say use the toilet, or like if you don't want to say,
Go to the
like,
bathroom.
yeah, like, what do you mean have a pee? You don't have a pee, you take a pee. But anyway, so yeah, there was those. Not too much for the other counters. Yeah, I think I didn't see anything that qualified as like Sassy Harry or Whimsy or anything like that. So the only thing we have is named one-off characters, which are, oh boy, exciting. Um,
Sorry, this is a extremely stupid joke, but my mind just wandered to this. I'm like, have and take. Like, what would the difference there be? I'm like, well, after you take something, you have it, and because of time zones, like we're ahead of America, so by the time we're having it, you're just taking it.
Man, what the hell?
I think it's a good joke.
You go on thinking that. So yeah, like I said, nobody gives a shit about these characters, but we've got Veronica Smethley, who just was one of the people that sent Lockhart fan mail. The testimonials in the Kwikspell letter are from Madam Z Nettles and Warlock DJ Prod. I don't know if Warlock can be considered like a title, or if that I don't know,
so.
whatever. And then we have, this barely qualifies as even a name, but the Wailing Widow was one of the ghosts that showed up at Nick's Death Day party. There were no other ghosts that were named other than Myrtle and
the Bloody Baron and
there's Sir Patrick Delaney Podmore, who just barely avoids being a one-off character because he is mentioned earlier in the chapter. It's like whatever.
But basically, that guy's get mentioned multiple times, but it's within the same. Oh no, it's the same context, isn't it? Not the same chapter.
Yeah, he's set up and then comes back a little bit later.
Okay, fair enough.
Whatever. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started on the actual proper thing here. So it begins with Harry just kind of whining about the previous week or whatever. It's the start of October now. And apparently Colin has basically just memorized his schedule and is following him everywhere. And I'm going to be bitching about Colin more very briefly, but just based off of this one line, I'm like, he memorized Harry's schedule. Damn, this kid's a stalker.
Yeah, we'll get
a life.
So, it's talking about, it just kind of does one of those time-lapse things where it's and here's, some random stuff that happened this week. And it mentions that, Ron's wand keeps fucking up and doing stupid shit. And I'm just I'm surprised the teachers put up with this. It,
apparently it flew out of his hands and hit Flitwick in the face and caused, a giant green boil or something.
I imagine it could be healed quickly. And I think, did they even mention that?
They didn't. He probably, just pointed his own wand at it and boink, now it's gone. Because, Flitwick's good at doing things, but...
Yeah.
Still.
And then, so we cut to, it's early in the morning, fucking Oliver Wood shows up and is like, Harry, you gotta come practice. And Harry's like, it's fucking 5 a.m. He's like, yeah, exactly. Huh?
Nothing, just, it's the way it's described is it's the sun has just barely risen, and then, but apparently he's I don't know how I even managed to sleep with all these birds tweeting. I don't know. But
yeah, so Wood's down to the Quidditch pitch in 15 minutes, and that's not including the time it takes for Harry to get dressed. And then he gets down there and he is late, but we don't know by how much. But, presumably Wood thought that it was reasonable for Harry to get down there in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know how far away the Quidditch pitch is from the castle, but the castle's fucking big.
Ginormous, yeah.
Getting down from Gryffindor Tower to the front door probably takes 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thinking. But I don't know. And then the fact that Oliver even went into Harry's dorm in the first place confirms that, a Gryffindor, he's a 6th year in this one, the 6th years can go into the 2nd years, dorm. So I guess, you can go to just whatever year dorm, with the only exception being the, gender detection spell on the girls' stairs, which I can't remember if that's been mentioned yet. I don't think so.
It hasn't. I don't think that gets mentioned until, book 4 or 5. The girls can go into the boys' dorms, but not the other way around.
Yep.
So, I have a few points to make here. First of all, I'm surprised that there's no Quidditch tryouts. It was probably just, kind of glossed over because it doesn't matter. But at least when Harry becomes the, team captain, he has to hold tryouts to see, who gets to stay on the team and, finding new people and stuff. Oliver Wood just doesn't do that. It's just the same exact team as last year. So Harry's just automatically on the team. But yeah, so we get more Colin here. He's all like, so we've established that it's like fucking 6 a.m. or something on like a Saturday. Like Harry wanted to sleep in. Colin is already in the common room, and he's like, "I heard your name, Harry." I was like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh my god!" Like, and so he just immediately, starts lapdogging, like, following him around everywhere. He's like, "You're on the team. That's so cool. Is it hard to fly? How does it play?" Like, asking a million questions a second, and it's like, "Oh my god, shut up!" Like.
The funny part is, like, you imagine, with this big of a difference between, like, he's looking up to Harry so much. They're only a year apart. This is an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't find Colin annoying just personally. I find him kind of endearing. Just, I don't know. He's too, like, pure. Even if it is, like,
he is, annoying. But, like, holy shit. Minor point here, he shows Harry the picture of Harry and Lockhart. And, like, Harry's trying to, struggle out of the photo or whatever, and he's like, yeah, you go. But he points out that the photo is black and white, which I found kind of odd. Like, I'm wondering if the camera itself can only make black and white photos, or if that's, like, a property of the magical moving photos. Like, I don't know. Because I'll have to keep an eye out for other photos later if they ever mention color, because I always figured they were in color. So... Yeah, as Harry's walking out of the castle, Colin is just following him, asking a million questions. He explains how Quidditch works to, recap it to the reader.
Which is funny, because they kind of had a mini recap of it, like, in an earlier chapter, as we pointed out, but yeah, here we have the full...
I wrote down this specific line here. What are the other balls for? Colin asked, tripping down a couple of steps because he was gazing open-mouthed at Harry. Like, all Harry is doing is explaining how the game works. He isn't even, like,
doing it.
He isn't saying anything impressive. Like, it's not like, he's recounting this great game that he was in once. Like, Colin is just fucking obsessed. Like, why are you gazing open-mouthed at the guy? And so I was trying to think, like, what the hell does this remind me of? Because it's really off-putting to me. And it's not necessarily in a creepy way. It's more of an embarrassing way. Like, secondhand embarrassment. I had to go through a bit of a mental journey. I'm like, what the hell does this remind me of? My first thought was the episode of Fairly Odd Parents where Timmy wants to be, like, the most desirable person, and, like, everybody's constantly showering him with praise and wants to hang out with him and stuff. I don't think it was that, though. Then I remembered Be Careful What You Wish For, which is a Goosebumps book. There's a part where the main character, like, there's this bully that keeps picking on her, and she's like, I want her to think that I'm, like, the greatest person in the world, and then she basically turns into, like, a stalker, showing up in her bedroom and constantly, following around everywhere. I'm like, okay, maybe that was what I was thinking of, but I'm pretty sure what it actually was just Bebe's boobs destroy society, which is a South Park episode where... all of the boys just immediately fucking become obsessed with Bebe. And so, like, there's scenes where she's, like, reading a little, like, report that she wrote, which was, like, 2 sentences and really boring and lame. And they're all like, wow, you're amazing. It's like, there's just something about the idea of, like, I'm imagining, like, every action you do is like, oh my god, you pulled the lid off that jar so easily, or, oh man, that cereal looks great. Like, just, like, dude, shut up. I don't know. I a little bit of a tangent there, but basically Colin's getting on my nerves. We've also, the book couldn't decide if it wanted to change its terminology or not. There was a sentence... Yeah. Let me find it. Yeah, so Harry says, like, there's 3 chasers, they try to throw the quaffle, like, get it through the goalpost at the end of the pitch. And I'm like, let me check my notes, because I pulled up the notes from the last book, and they did change pitch to field in the US version. But then 2 sentences later, it says, like, yeah, like, Harry went all the way down to the sloping lawns of the Quidditch field. It's like...
To me, those words are just interchangeable.
I guess. Like, if they had always
In the
said it,
context of sports, anyway.
yeah, it's like if they had always said pitch, that would have been fine. It's just the fact that they tried to change it before.
Yeah.
And now
I
they
mean, we
kinda gave
established
up.
there was some early installment awareness in Philosopher's Stone with changing stuff that didn't need to be changed, right?
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, they get down to the field, or pitch or whatever, and then
Wood's like reprimanding him. He's like, "We gotta do better this year."
yeah, there's this whole scene where he's just like, we've got the best team, and the only reason we lost last year is because of stuff outside of our hands, which reminded, like, I had totally forgotten that at the end of the last book, like, Harry was in the hospital wing during the last game, and they just had to play without a seventh person, no seeker, and so they just got fucking steamrolled. Like, why do they not have backups? But like, at the very least, make one of the chasers try to find the snitch. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, they brought. I think it would be better to give up a chaser.
Like, I mean, maybe they did, and none of them were just good at it. But either way, so yeah, Wood is trying to, like, he has, like, I don't understand how football works, but I know the scenes of, like, the team is looking up at the board with, like, all the X's and arrows and shit, and it's like, these are the formations we're gonna do. Wood's basically doing that, and he's spending like 20 minutes per play, and he goes through like 3 of them, and the entire team is falling asleep. Like, I think it was like George falls asleep on like Alicia's shoulder or something, and it's like, how does he keep going and not notice this? Okay, had a weird internet hiccup or something there. Anyway, yeah, I finished what I needed to say about that.
Yeah, so they go out to the pitch, and of course Colin's there, and all of us like, "Oh, is this a Slytherin spy?" And you never know about that.
Oh god, yeah. So the way I wrote, or never mind, I don't call Colin a Russian spy until later. Um, yeah, so they're they're flying around, and yeah, Colin's taking pictures at them, and one's like, I don't know, he could be a Slytherin spy, but it's like he immediately identifies him as a first year, but not as a Gryffindor, and I'm just like, how do you tell he's 11 and not 12 that easily? I don't know. And then here's another, oh shit, they're behind me, aren't they? No, I'm in front of you.
To be fair, Wood is in Gryffindor. Well, yeah, you should recognize him as a Gryffindor first. Like, whether or not he's seen Colin around the dormitory, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Either you recognize that this is a kid from your house, or you don't recognize him at all and don't know his age.
The only thing I can think of is he's like, the school is so small that he recognizes every face eventually, even those in other houses, and then he doesn't recognize Colin. He's like, well, I guess he's a first year, but I don't know which house he's in.
Yeah.
I don't know. Minor details.
Yeah, doesn't matter in the slightest.
And then it's like, oh no, Slytherin don't need to spy with Colin because they're here in person. It's like,
oh no. Yeah. And so yeah, they'll march up, and then we have one of the most questionable sentences I've ever read. So it's like, so the Slytherin team is lined up, and as we find out later, they're hiding Malfoy behind them so he can like dramatically be revealed, which I thought was hilarious. But so we've got the 6 other team members, and they're all guys, and the book makes a mention like, oh, there's no girls on the... Yeah. Here's the actual line. It says, there were no girls on the Slytherin team who stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the Gryffindors, leering to a man. So, I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, does this mean, like, everybody is, like, staring down the person across to them? What does this mean? So I have to look this up. Leering to a man apparently has a couple different meanings, and it was funny, when I searched that specific phrase, almost every result I got was somebody questioning this specific sentence. Like, it was a bunch of people who were like, I was reading Chamber of Secrets, and I don't know what this means. And there seems to be a lot of people who think that, like, it basically means that they're all, like the Slytherin team is, like, staring at the girls lustfully, which I'm pretty sure is not the intent here.
No, that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, because it's like, the sentence goes out of the way to mention, like, oh, there's no girls on this team, but there are on this one, and they're all staring at them, like.
So what it's actually saying, just to clarify, What did you want to say?
No, I already forgot what it's supposed to mean.
Okay, so I mean, leering to a man is not a phrase. To a man is a phrase, apparently, in British English. Well, I don't even know if it's British, but it means like everyone is doing it. Like, how do I put this? It's like, to like
Yeah.
they took out all the animals to the last animal or something like that. But instead of the word last, it's just to the man. I don't know. It's weird. It's supposed to mean everyone or like everything.
Either way, it was awkwardly phrased.
So what it's saying is, there's no girls in Slytherin. The Slytherins are standing shoulder to shoulder facing the Gryffindors. The Gryffindors, all of them, are leering at the Slytherins. That's what it's saying. It's just that is
All right.
shoved into a single sentence.
Yeah, it was a little awkward. So, anyway, that disaster, of English language occurs, and then we have...
Yeah, so Oliver's like, I booked the pitch, why are you guys here? And then they're just like, oh, there's enough room for two. And he's like, no, seriously, I booked it. And they're like, just kidding, Snape said we could come here. And I'm like, why the fuck can Snape circumvent the pitch booking system? Why is there a pitch booking system if the teachers can just play favorites and be like, nah, you get it?
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's just like... I booked the pitch. Oh, well, Snape said we could have it anyway. Okay, but I still booked it. He's like, yeah, but Snape said we could have it. It's like, who wins here? But I guess the Slytherins do. I don't know. And so, yeah again, we have the ending of the SpongeBob episode Band Geeks, where the band members just awkwardly slide apart without moving at all, to reveal Malfoy. Like, do you know the scene I'm referring to?
Just at the start of the song, like when
where they slide out of the way and like SpongeBob's behind them. Like,
that's just making me think of like some of the reveals of like Satsuki and Kill la Kill, which you're not gonna know about, but yeah, they just have like the random mooks like sliding to the side.
I don't know why that was my go-to visual there, but that was pretty great. But yeah, they're like, besides we need to train our new Seeker, and yeah, Malfoy is like, hello, and how do you like our brooms?
Yeah, and they have these new fucking fancy ass brooms because last year it's like, oh shit, Harry has the cool new Nimbus 2000, and then here they're like, well, Lucius got us the Nimbus 2001, and I'm like,
it's one better.
Yeah, it's one better. Which, it reminds me of like an Infinity +1 sword. And also, more specifically, I got confused about this as a kid because like I didn't, like when I was really little, I didn't know when the stories were supposed to take place. I knew that the first movie came out around like 2001. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's supposed to be like that, like, 2000, 2001, turn of the millennium. But no, this is 1992. There's no reason for it to be named after the year, so it's just one better than the 2000.
Yeah, I guess they just named the first one 2000 because that was like, cool, fancy number at the time, and then they're like, well, we gotta make one better. Anyway, so I think we probably addressed this last time, but like in the last book, but it is really unfair that all the teams aren't on an even playing field, that you kind of have to provide your own broomstick, and some are just clearly better than others. It's a little bullshit.
Weird. I was almost actually gonna bring that up, and then for some reason, part of me was like, "Oh no, I guess it makes sense." But no, it really doesn't. Like,
yeah,
I can't think of any real life sports where that's the case.
I don't know.
I mean, like for school sports, anyway.
Right. It's like, you can argue, like, there can be cases of this where it's like, if you have, I don't know, better shoes or something, like, you might be better at running, but like that's much. This is basically the equivalent of like, race car driving, and it's like, provide your own car. It's like, oh, well, shit.
Yeah, I don't actually know how like Formula One works, but
I don't know. But anyway, so now we get
the big moment.
Indeed, Malfoy's heated gamer moment.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember the exact. I don't want to like refer to the book here. I'm trying to remember. It's something like, we have the better brooms, and then Ron and Hermione show up, and Ron's like, yeah, well, at least we didn't have to buy our way onto the team. Like, Gryffindor's got on there through talent.
Yeah, Hermione actually says that line because that's.
Oh shit! What does Ron say?
I don't know.
I swear Ron says something first.
He probably does. Let me look.
Yeah, you're right. Hermione does say that. Wow, I can't believe Hermione stole yet another line from Ron in my head.
Yes.
No,
Looks like he actually doesn't say anything. He just kind of gapes.
Okay.
And they keep
Hermione's
making
like,
comments about the clean sweep fives. It's like a museum might want to buy those.
it's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Hermione's like, yeah, Gryffindor's got on through talent, and Draco, who I don't believe has ever spoken to Hermione or acknowledged her in the books up until this point, this is like the first time they actually have an interaction. First thing, he calls her a wizard slur. He calls her a mudblood. And then, all fucking chaos erupts.
Yeah, it's like, I think, like, Fred and George immediately go to, like, pounce him, and, like, Flint has to get in the way, and everyone's just fucking screaming at him. And Malfoy's just kind of, like, has this shit-eating grin the entire time. It's a little stupid.
Yeah, I'm imagining it being, like, a precision strike where he's, like, he expected this, and he just, like, deliberately dropped it there just to piss everyone off.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean...
So now we have, this was set up in the previous chapter with eat slugs, which he doesn't say in the book, but he's just like, you'll pay for that one, and does a non-specific spell, which backfires, and then he starts vomiting slugs, and everybody loses their shit over this. I like the note that you put in here.
Oh, what, Malfoy?
Yeah, Malfoy be like, and it's just a meme image.
It's a meme image of, like, if you've seen it, it's the guy, like, pounding his fist on the table and wheezing. Because the book describes that Malfoy literally, like, falls onto all fours and starts pounding the ground. I'm like, Jesus, dude, it's not that funny.
Oh my god.
And, so yeah, the story is, like, really making this to be a big deal, and obviously Harry doesn't know what's going on until they go to Hagrid.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know at what point they call him Haggard, but that happens. So yeah, they're carrying, Ron constantly puking up these slugs, which I don't really know what to say about this other than, obviously it's disgusting, and there's the parts in the movie where he has to do this, and, like, I swear I heard that it wasn't CG and he actually had to have them in his mouth, but, like, I don't know if that's true. Yeah.
Like, no, I think I even looked it up, and it's like they were like made of, like, jelly or something
maybe
like that.
But either way, yes. So for some reason the book feels the need to constantly mention what color Lockhart is wearing, so I'm going to mention it too. Today he's wearing the palest mauve.
Yes.
And there's this really stupid scene where, like, it says they're 20 feet in front of Hagrid's hut, and then they see Lockhart come out the door, and they're like, oh no, out of the way. It's like, how did he not see them? But anyway, they go inside.
I assume they're not directly, like, a fucking straight line out the door, like...
Yeah, I guess. So they go in, they're talking to Hagrid, let him know what's going on, and Hagrid's just like, better out than in, and gets him a big bucket to puke him in, and Hermione's just like, all we can do is wait, and so
well, actually, they talk a bit more about Lockhart, right? Because
they do, yeah, because there's a bit where, Hagrid's basically, like, bitching about Lockhart just being, insufferable, and Hermione tries to defend him, and, like, I found this notable. It says, like, her voice went higher than normal, which I think is something that is kind of typical,
like, losing her composure.
Well, I think that's actually typical, like, when it's, like, somebody that you have feelings for. A lot of times it's usually when you're talking to the person, but I guess in this case just talking about him, it's like that's like an unconscious thing that happens sometimes. But yeah, so I want to know what the hell this eat slug spell is, because, like, at least Hermione already knows, like, well, there's nothing we can do, just gotta wait until it runs out. It's like, why are we not taking him up to the hospital? Like, I don't know. But,
I guess, yeah, it's weird.
So, apparently the reason Lockhart is coming by is, he has to show everybody that he knows everything about everything, and in this case, he wants to tell Hagrid, the best way to keep Kelpies out of your well. And I had to look this up, and Kelpies are, like, fucking horse demons. Like...
Isn't it what Keldeo is based on?
At least vaguely, yes. Apparently they can shapeshift, but I don't know if that also means they can become, like, a lot smaller. they usually appear as horses, and they just, lure you into the water and then fucking kill you. Like, I don't know what these would be doing in a well. But,
Yeah.
Then we have the first instance, the first of 3 times in this chapter, where I made note of something.
Yeah.
Like, in the last video, I talked about something, and I'm like, I think this gets mentioned eventually. And then all 3 of these happened today. Like, in this chapter here. Yeah, the first one is Hagrid talking about the defense against the dark arts job, like, being jinxed, and how, like, nobody's been able to keep the position for a long time. So, it's like, okay, I think this might be the first time that's been established.
We already set up a bit on that last time, so.
Yeah. And
so then Hagrid's like, what even happened in the first place? And so they're trying to explain, and Harry's like, oh no, Hermione's like, oh, Malfoy called me something, and everyone got mad.
It's just like, I could tell it was really rude, but I don't know what it meant. And I appreciate this because the movie fucked it up by having her explain, like, already know what it is and be, like, super upset by it, whereas, it makes a lot more sense for Ron to be the one to know.
Yeah, because this is, like, a cultural thing that you wouldn't pick up from a book, or at least you'd be unlikely to pick up from a school book like Hermione would have. And Hermione doesn't seem the type that would be sociable enough to have gone out and chatted to a bunch of different people and already have heard it before. So.
Yeah, so now we get Ron basically explaining, what's a mudblood, and it goes into the whole, like, blood purity superiority shit.
Yeah.
You have a few notes here. I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, God. So off the bat, everybody in this scene is like, that's stupid. Blood purity stupid. Like it. And specifically the point they always make, and I think this is repeated later on, not necessarily in this book, but often whenever the topic comes up, the most common, like, reason given by characters for, like, why it's bullshit is they're like, look at Neville, he's pure blood and he's not good at magic, but look at Hermione, she's muggle-born and she's not good at magic. And I've seen the point raised where people are like, okay, but this sounds like it's just like a technicality. So the book, it almost sounds like the book is like, oh, but if it was the opposite, where, like, muggle-borns actually were worse at magic, but, like, if that was the case, it almost sounded like, oh, then it would be okay. But, it really wouldn't be.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. The way that I would think of this is, like...
I just see it as an example, where they're like,
here's the thing, though. It's like, this is getting into touchy territory. This was gonna happen in this video regardless. But, the way that I see this is, they're basically saying, like, your blood purity doesn't impact, how good of a wizard you are or whatever, which is basically the same as saying, like, your race doesn't impact, like, how good you are at doing X. Like, oh, Asians aren't always smarter, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and so, in those cases, like, I think it would actually be valid to say, like, oh, well, this person that goes against the stereotype is actually really good at it. So, like, in that case, it works. What I think you're saying is more like... It's like...
Because it's not almost just a matter of, like, what you think of Muggle-born.
Well,
this also becomes, like, a matter of, like, what's the Ministry going to do? Because eventually the Ministry starts being, it gets overtaken by the Death Eaters, and it's like...
But here's the thing, though, is, like, if there was actually validity to the idea of, like, yes, if you have, like, non-magical parents, you're not going to be as good as a, like, full pureblood wizard. If that actually was true, then, like... obviously the racism there would still exist, but it would actually be more like ableism, where it's just like, these people can't help they were born into this, and, like, we shouldn't be mean to them because they can't help it, but, there is still a difference that kind of has to be acknowledged. So I think if that was the case, it would almost be like, you'd have to have different tiers of, like, schooling or whatever. Like, some people just can't get as good at it. Some people need
more help with it and stuff like that.
Like, maybe if you are completely muggle-born, you're never going to be as good as magic, but you can still do the best you can. It's just, yeah. So
well, the point that I've seen raised is, like, when it comes to, like, the, like, we're talking about like how people treat them and how people think about them, but the thing that I've seen raised is like when it comes to what does the ministry do, like should it's hard to explain, but like I've
all it
seen
really
people
comes
basically-
down to is don't be a dick, especially for things people can't control.
yes.
So
God, I, I'm having trouble fucking for because I'm not done. There's like
I'm sorry.
there's like a point
I know you're talking about like especially like when Voldemort starts kind of taking over, the Ministry does turn into this weird
basically
twisted thing.
nobody in the series, or at least it's not pushed as much as the like look how good they can be at magic. Nobody in the series is like, even if they suck at magic, they still deserve to be part of our community and like still deserve rights and stuff like that. And I've seen people complain about that basically, which I think it's possibly reading too much into it in some cases, but I kind of see the point.
So you're saying that people are upset that there isn't someone defending
Who is-
them? Like
No, that there isn't somebody like basically I've seen people saying, well, how good you are at magic is a moot point for whether or not like they should be treated well. Like they should be people should treat each other well regardless of how good they are at magic, and not as a matter of like, well, we should treat them well because some of them are good at magic. Like,
well,
do you get what I mean?
I do, but I also don't know if I fully agree with that because you have the people, especially like Arthur Weasley and some of the stuff that comes up in like the Potter Watch like radio show in the last book and stuff, where there are people saying like Muggles can't do magic, like in measurable ways they are inferior to us, but they're still people. And it's like this is kind of one step away from that, where it's like if we have the people campaigning for equal treatment of Muggles, then that would also apply to Muggle-borns.
Yeah, I know. I guess it's not as front and center. This is the first time this is like properly addressed, and they're just like, oh well, they don't all suck at magic.
I guess. I feel like that.
I guess some people just feel like there's like better or more important points to make when it comes to this stuff that but
I guess I see that as kind of reading too much into it, and it's like it's looking for something to complain about, because that almost sounds like the I have black friends, or they're like, oh, there's some good ones type of argument, and that's not really what they're doing here. But it's like someone's trying to make it seem like they are. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't even heard like at this point raised until relatively recently, and I'm like, it's the kind of thing where I can't just immediately be like dismiss it or completely agree with it, because I would have to read through the whole books again, because I mean I didn't necessarily remember the thing that you were saying with Arthur Weasley later on in like the later books.
Yeah, just for context, there's a part, and you remember the radio thing they're listening to, right?
Yes, I do remember the radio, yeah.
Yeah, there's a part where they say, like, as if you're living in a Muggle area, like, every day you should be putting up some protective spells, not just for yourself, but for your neighbors, because, they don't know what's going on. It's not fair for them to, be dying in our war. Like, do the minimum to try to keep them safe. They're people, too.
Yeah.
So.
I guess some people just wanted the series to go a little further with it and just see, like, okay, maybe can we make things better than they are? Because things aren't... I guess the other point, and this is my last major thing, is, like, even when Voldemort's not out causing, the really bad shit, the default status quo is still not that great for a lot of Muggleborns and for a lot of Muggles as well. And some people are just like, oh, it would have been nice if they had been able to make it better in the course of the series.
I think it's realistic. It's basically, like,
True.
the way that the world is portrayed here, at least so far, it seems like, probably the majority of the wizarding community doesn't have any issue with blood purity. It's just kind of like this group of elitist assholes that do, and they just happen to be very loud and violent about it. And that kind of matches up with real life, I think. Mm-hmm. So. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
This is only the part where the book is starting to touch on it for the first time. It's definitely going to be coming up a lot later, so if we think of more to say about it later, we'll do it at that point. So, after they have that whole conversation, you know, constantly being interrupted with slug puking, we go outside to look at the giant pumpkins. It's very heavily implied that Hagrid is using magic to make them grow. And we have now point number 2 of things that I brought up in the last video that were now confirmed here. I was like, wasn't it like implied somewhere that like Hagrid had his wand inside his umbrella, and here Harry's just like he very strongly suspects it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't realize the book actually spelled it out that clearly.
I had no memory of that either. And obviously this ties into a point later where, you know, Harry's like, oh yeah, he got expelled, right? That's what happened, and we get the explanation or like the origin for that in later on in this book. So
yep.
I wonder if she was thinking about that when writing the first book.
Don't know.
This is kind of unrelated, but we actually missed a note of mine, which is just when Harry, during the conversation previously, Harry said something hotly because he like sort of lost his composure, and it's just funny to me that it's the opposite of coolly. Like it's not literally hot or cool, but it still is the opposite anyway by like what it means in this context.
Yeah, whenever I think you had a note in the for the previous book where whenever somebody says something coolly, you always imagine it as like very smug, like
yeah, exactly. And the opposite of smug to me is like, you know, lacking confidence and composure and just like kind of spitting it out.
Yeah. So anyway, after the visit to Hagrid, they go back to the castle. McGonagall tells them they have their detention that night. Ron has to clean out, has to like polish a bunch of awards with Filch, and Harry has to answer Lockhart's fan mail. And I just found this hilarious because it's like
they both want the opposite detention.
They do, but like the answering fan mail thing, it's like I don't even know what to compare it to, but it's such a classic, you know, like, you know what I can compare it to is the freaking AVGN episode with what was it, Friday the 13th, where it's like, don't kill me, and he holds up the game, kill me. Like, it's just like,
yeah,
you know, it's like the punishment seems so whatever, but Lockhart's so fucking insufferable that it's actually pretty bad. So yeah, fast forwards to that. Harrison Potter goes into Lockhart's office and sees all the portraits, and we now have reached point number 3 of things that I brought up in the last video, where I'm like, well, didn't Lockhart have a bunch of portraits of himself? That wasn't shown in the book; it was shown here. Yep. And we have someone who just barely escaped being in the one-off named character territory, Gladys Gudgeon, Gladys Gudgeon, is someone that frequently writes to Lockhart, and I checked, and she is mentioned again by name in Order of the Phoenix after Lockhart, you know, has lost his memory and he's in the hospital, like he's at St. Mungo's. She's still writing him every week, and he doesn't know why.
God. But yeah, so Harry is answering all this fan mail, and Lockhart's like trying to give him advice, and Harry's just like, he's just like, just not listening at all. Except he apparently does catch a couple things. Lockhart is like, remember, Harry, celebrity is as celebrity does. Which I remember that quote. It's like lodged in my brain. I don't know what the fuck it means.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that much. Like what. I did remember that line, and even before you pointed it out, I vaguely remember having some sort of, like, this is, you know, an extremely empty statement that means fucking nothing. But I think what it's basically saying is that, like, you know, you can only stay a celebrity if you continue to do things that are, like, worthy of attention. Or, like, maybe. You can only, you know, if you do good things, you'll get good attention. It's either way, it's kind of a pointless statement.
Yeah, because in this case, he's not using celebrity to mean, like, a person. He's using it to mean the original definition of, like, the state of being celebrated. So, yeah. Anyway, so, you know, Harry's writing the fucking fan, well, like, he's writing on the envelopes or something, and then suddenly, just out of fucking nowhere, he hears this, like, creepy-ass voice, like, being like,
I want to tear you and kill you. Yeah, it's just... It's such a whiplash, because, you know, we've got this, like, kind of derpy scene going on, and then just out of nowhere, sudden murder voice. And it's like, holy shit. Like, tone whiplash.
And, yeah, definitely. And so, spoilers, obviously, as we've been doing throughout this entire series, this is the basilisk that he's hearing. It's moving through the walls. And it, for some reason, is just speaking aloud. This part confuses me, because, like, okay, number one, Lockhart cannot hear it, okay? But Harry can. And later on, we find out, oh, Harry can speak Parseltongue. But Lockhart should still have been able to hear hissing, right?
Yes, but hear me out on this one. The way that
Does he just think it's the pipes?
Probably. Like, I'm thinking here, like, the way the movie always shows, or, like, the way that it makes Parseltongue sound is always, like, the, you know, the... Like, that kind of... It's, like, obviously someone kind of whispering nonsense, but, like, if... Depending on how you interpret it, it could just be, you know, water rushing through the pipes. Like, you know, I'm sure you hear that, like, you know, plenty of places, you know, it's a silent room, and then just kind of, you hear, like, a... like, kind of random background noise of, like, you know, crap happening in the walls. It
hasn't heard, like, moaning before. I've heard something that sounded like somebody being like... Ah! I'm just like, what the fuck is that?
So, yeah, it's like...
I guess that's what it is.
If you hear something that is, you know... If you can clearly identify it as snake hissing, that might be a little worrying, but I would just probably hear that and be like, yeah, that's, you know, walls settling. Or, like, right. You know, water rushing through the pipes and the walls, I don't know.
You'd think that Lockhart wouldn't just be like, what are you talking about? He would be like, oh, what, you mean the water? I mean, I get, like, the problem is I would kind of give it away. Like, the twist, the thing is going through the pipes later
Honestly, it's the type of thing that you would, like, to me, I would definitely
you might just
tune
forget
it out.
That you even heard it.
Yeah, like, this is a very stupid example, but in some class I was in when I was a kid, there was a point where the teacher went out of their way to say, like, I don't even know what point they were making, but they were talking about how, like, you know, you get used to a lot of things that are just common occurrences, like, you don't even pay attention to them, and they're like, I bet nobody even noticed that you could hear the, like, air conditioner kind of vibrating in the back of the room until I pointed it out. And then everyone's like, God damn it. And then, like, that's all we could hear for the rest of the day. And,
right.
Yeah, you just, you know, like you tune these things out.
Manually.
But, yeah, either way, why is the snake talking?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, does it know Harry's there? Is it trying to communicate with him? Probably not. So is it just muttering to itself evilly? Or, like...
Probably.
I don't know. And then the other point, this is kind of jumping ahead, like, way far in the book, but I want to mention it now just because it's related. If the basilisk speaks here to himself, why does it not speak to Harry or to Tom in the fucking climax of the book? Like, my guess is just that it's a non-diegetic reason, that it would have been derpy for it to talk to Harry while it's trying to be this big menacing monster.
Probably.
In front of him.
I feel like...
Honestly, I find it kind of derpy even here.
I feel like a lot of the villain dialogue in this series is kind of not great anyway. So, you know, having the introduction of, you know, Harry having to run through all these tunnels avoiding the thing, and it's just like, I can still smell you, and like, yeah, it's...
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't remember what it sounds like in the movie as well. This is another thing. But I played the game more recently than seeing the movie. And in that one, it's just like, come to me, let me rip you. And it sounds really fucking derpy, and I can't take it seriously, and that's how I imagine it when I'm reading.
Excellent. I don't remember what it sounds like in the game, if I even got that far, but
you did.
In the movie, it's just kind of like high-pitched and, like, evil sounding. I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah. It's not... I would call it sufficiently creepy.
Fair enough.
So, anyway, Harry hears this, is like, what the hell was that? And Lockhart's like, what? There was nothing happening. And he's like, oh my, it's been 4 hours. It's amazing how time flies when we're having fun. Anyway, off you go. And so Harry immediately now has to go back to his room in, like, this fucking dark, empty castle at 11 p.m. or whatever it is, after just hearing this voice being like, let me kill you. It's like, yeah, I'd probably be a little nervous to head back on my own.
I mean, I was making fun of it, but yeah, realistically, I would be scared too.
Like, Harry's brave, but there's still limits. You know,
brave enough boy for this.
if there's a real concern of some kind of murderous monster being around, you're probably gonna be a little on the jumpy side.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm surprised that we didn't have surprise appearance from Peeves to like freak him out or something, but Peeves will show up later. So yeah, he gets back to the room. He tells Ron about it. Ron's like, the hell? I don't think he really says a whole lot about it. He mentions how he had to scrub that special award for services to the school so many times because I kept I puked up slugs all over it, and it's kind of setting that up for later because eventually that does matter. And then the chapter abruptly ends.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get Peaky.
Yeah. So chapter 8 starts with the Peaky thing, which I already talked about.
It also Spate.
Stupid one.
Yeah, hold on. I had to look this one up because I had never heard the word Spate, and I look it up. Let me find the context. Hold on. It's Madame Pomfrey, the nurse, was kept busy by a sudden spate of colds among the staff and students. And so I had to look that up, and when you look things up on Google, it'll give the word, it'll give, like, the phonetic spelling or whatever, and I'd never know how to read those, but I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, wait, is it spat? Because I know the word spat, and I'm like...
Let me look it up.
And so I'm but, like, it has the option to, like, listen to it, but I didn't do that because I wasn't wearing my headset. So then I'm, like, reading through this, I'm like, is this a Britishism? And it's like, no, it is if it's referring to, like, a river overflowing, but it's just a word. And,
this says spate.
Yeah, I eventually realized it was pronounced spate. I don't know, it confused me. I've never heard this word before. But...
yeah.
Anyway, then we get a probably intentional pun where, there's a whole bunch of rain, and Oliver Wood's enthusiasm for regular training sessions was not dampened by the heavy rain. Oh. And then we immediately have a moment here where it made me think, like, in the last chapter, it was all this freak out over Colin being a Russian spy, and... I thought it was completely unwarranted, but, like, in this chapter we see that Fred and George were spying on the Slytherin team, so apparently this is a thing that happens. I don't know.
Yeah. So Harry runs upon Nick, and I get confused because I actually had a note in here that I had to delete once I realized what was going on, and I was just being stupid. Nick, oh God, let me find the fucking quote because this confused me so bad when I was reading it. Nick is muttering to himself.
Yeah, he's just like, don't fulfill their requirements. Half an inch, if that.
Yeah, I misread it as don't fulfill the requirements. Half an inch, if that. Like, he's like, oh no, like, please don't fulfill their requirements. And I'm like, who is hoping for half an inch of rain? And what bad thing is going to happen? I was just an idiot.
Yeah, he's talking about the half of inch of skin keeping his head on.
Yep. So it turns out he's actually upset because he tried to apply for a headless hunt and they rejected him because, his head is still attached, just barely. But he gets this information from a letter that he shows to Harry.
And the letter is also transparent, yes.
Yeah, I want to know about the logistics of ghost letters. How does that work? How do you make ghost paper? How do you write with ghost ink? What the fuck?
Well, I mean, paper is made out of dead trees, so he had to find a tree that became a ghost. Or...
oh my God.
I don't fucking know. The ghost letter is a little bit derpy.
It's great. And then, this comes and goes, and it is relevant later in the chapter, but it feels like a huge non sequitur at first.
This entire chapter is a non sequitur.
It is,
like,
but
none of this matters. I'm not surprised they cut it from the movie, because it was basically just an excuse to have the trio not be at the feast so that they could like see the thing later on their own. But so yeah, I'm just gonna read my note on this one exactly as I wrote it. I kind of like how Nick is pissed for not being able to join the reindeer games despite being physically incapable of doing so.
Yeah,
because there was a bit while I was reading this where I'm thinking like, I'm like, I don't know if this was
the headless guys.
I don't know if this was like warranted for me to even think this, but I'm like, you know, a lot of times when you like with older people, they don't have like as many things really left to do. Like there's less options for them to like, and so there's less to get excited about. And so a lot of times, you know, if something like this happens, it's like, oh my god, they kicked me out of their knitting club. It's like, you know, a world-ending situation. And so now I'm like, well, this ghost is 500 years old, so you know he can't play these stupid headless games that sound lame as hell, but it's all he has. It's like,
yeah.
I just thought that was like, I don't know if that was a connection worth making. It probably has nothing to do with him being 500 years old. It was just I don't know, but
right.
Yeah, it's like they have these games of, you know, like the headless hunt or whatever, and like head polo or whatever the fuck, and it's like
isn't it unfair that I can't join?
It's like, well, you can't because your head is still technically attached. Like, it's unfair that, you know, you had to get hit with a blunt axe 60 times, but that's how it is.
Right. So Filch comes along.
Well, yeah, actually, before even that happens, Mrs. Norris, you know, comes up to Harry, who's been spreading mud throughout the castle, and Nearly Headless Nick is like, Filch is in a bad mood, he has the flu. And I'm like, why doesn't he take one of the pepper-up potions that they established like 2 pages ago that like instantly cure a cold? And so I'm wondering, like, you know, are squibs, or by extension muggles, just not able to get the effect of potions? And you'd think they would work on anyone.
I would think so too. And it's like, oh no, Harry is tracking mud everywhere. He's gonna get in trouble. So Filch is gonna have to clean it up, and he's in a bad mood. I'm like, just use Scourgify. Why can't he just? What?
It's because Harry has never used a spell.
I know, yeah. We're coming up on that soon, but like, not in this chapter. But it's not gonna be too long before that.
Yeah.
But like, seriously, like, I feel like that's a safe enough spell they could teach the fucking kids to
probably,
you know, make their lives a little easier.
But anyway, yeah, Filch shows up and he's just like, you've been spreading filth throughout the castle. You're gonna get it now, and you know, drags him into his creepy little lair, which apparently smells like fried fish. So I'm like, well, he's been making lightly fried fish fillets.
Say that one more goddamn time.
And so, you know, he's like writing out this note of like, okay, he's like, the crime is, you know, spreading filth through the castle,
befouling the castle,
befoulment. And he's like, the punishment, and then gets distracted by a loud crash and he runs out of the room. And so Harry finds the Kwikspell letter, and this thing is like so fucking hokey.
Yeah, so if you haven't read the book, if you're not reading along with us, basically he picks up this random envelope, and it's like, Kwikspell, what's that? And it's basically like what seems to be like a sort of course for people to learn magic if they're not good at it.
I love these testimonials though, because like the way it's worded, I could absolutely see this existing. It's just like, you know, find yourself making excuses not to perform simple spells? There is an answer. And then, you know, cut to I'm imagining you've got the photo of the person, and it's just like, Madam Z. Nettles of Topsham writes, and just, I don't know. But then, yeah, the one guy there is like, my wife used to sneer at my feeble charms, but 1 month into your fabulous Kwikspell course, I succeeded in turning her into a yak. Thank you, Kwikspell.
It's just funny because marriage is terrible.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
And Harry's like, why does Filch need this? Is he not very good at magic? And I'm like, oh yeah, Harry doesn't know that Filch is a squib. Which we talked about squibs in the last one, but just as a brief recap, wizard born but can't use magic. So it's like the opposite of a muggle born.
Yeah, Harry actually doesn't get around to telling Ron and Hermione about this until a later chapter, because he doesn't say it at the end of this one. Yeah, Ron's reaction to it is kind of interesting, but that's the point where we learn what a squib is. So, yeah, here you get the bit about the vanishing cabinet.
Right. So Filch comes back and he's like, ha, that vanishing cabinet will deal with him. And I'm like, god damn it, this thing comes up again? Like, I thought it was just the Borgin and Burke's mention, and then Order of the Phoenix, and then...
Wait, hold on, what does he say?
Did I misread it? I'm pretty sure Filch is like, oh, that vanishing cabinet ought to take care of Peeves.
No, he says that vanishing cabinet was extremely valuable. We'll have Peeves out this time. He's saying, like, Peeves broke it, and is like, he broke something valuable. We're gonna get him kicked out for sure.
Well, actually, this is still interesting continuity, because this is the reason it's fucking broken, which is a plot point in the Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, this thing does come back quite a few times.
Yeah. Well, I still want to raise my question here, just because I thought that he used it on Peeves, and I was like, would that even work? Like, can you teleport Peeves somewhere else? He's like, he like is created from the fucking spirit of mischief of the students.
Which is just weird.
Yeah, but I mean, given that, can you even move him somewhere else? Like, I figured he would just stop existing if he wasn't, like, I don't know.
No clue. We never see any other poltergeists that I'm aware of, and we don't know how they work.
Yep.
You wrote, yay, Nick is cool.
Yeah, because it turns out that, like, this whole thing was planned by Nick to get Harry away, which is stupid. You do mention this in your next note, but I like that he tried. He's like, Harry, listen to me. I'm going to help him out.
Yeah, this is the dumbest plan. So Nick, is talking to Harry I imagine them as being like in a stairwell. I don't remember if it mentions. He gets caught for the mud or whatever, he gets taken to the office, and Nick's like, oh, I know what to do to help, and convinces Peeves to drop the vanishing cabinet onto, like, the floor of a room directly above Filch's office to cause, like, a big ruckus and distract him. So first of all,
find out the vanishing cabinet is put in the room of requirement. Is it in there right now, or does it get moved there?
I assume it gets moved there. There's like there's a part I want to say in Order of the Phoenix where, like, somebody, like, oh god, what the fuck was it? Fred and George, like, shove somebody into this thing, and they get, like, in this weird limbo, and then they, like, try to apparate out of it and end up inside a toilet.
Yeah.
Like, so the thing is, like, the thing did not get put away until after that point. I don't know what the hell. Like, I assume this thing is just sitting in an unused classroom somewhere. But
I love the saga of this thing, though. I love it when little things like this keep cropping up throughout the story and then eventually become super relevant, and you could, like, connect the dots. It's cool.
So, like, yeah, so he breaks this thing, which I love that this thing only gets broken as just a diversion. And the diversion is, let's get Filch to run out of the room so Harry won't get in trouble. Which, there's a couple ways this could go. Either, Harry does what he did in the book, which is like, well, I should probably wait for him to get back. Even if I did leave.
Is just too mad about
like,
the other
yeah,
thing.
even if I did leave, he's gonna, like, not forget about this, and I'm gonna get in trouble later anyway, so what's the point of running out of the room? So it's like, there's that option, or... Yeah, it's just like... Why does he come back? Like, Filch comes back, and he's just like, he's so excited about getting Peeves in trouble, he kind of forgets about Harry, I guess. But then it, like, leads into this thing where he's just like, you looked at my letter, didn't you? And he's like, no.
And then, like, I'm reading this, I'm like, oh no, it backfired. Harry's gonna get in even more trouble.
And he's just like...
No, he just kicks him out.
Yeah, he's just like, nobody will ever know about this. Go away. It's like, is he now... Is he off the hook because it's like a bribe? Like, this didn't even have to do with the diversion. Like,
I guess so. I don't know.
It was such a weird sequence of events that had, like, it was, you know what it is? It's a sequence of, and then that happened, instead of cause and effect.
Right. Yeah, I guess so.
So
this is a minor point, but I just want to bring this up. Like the whole vanishing cabinet thing reminds me. I don't know if this is like a proper, if this is like something that other people have noticed, if this is intentional. I've noticed a kind of weird symmetry to the books where like books 1 and 7 have a lot of similar elements.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing.
2 and 6 have similar things. 3 and 5, and then Goblet Fire is just kind of on its own in the middle.
Yeah,
as like the turning point of the series. The Vanishing Cabinet is one kind of minor point, but a lot of the Blood Purity stuff,
or just
the diary,
in general,
Horcruxes, fucking Voldemort's like history and past, all of that stuff comes up in both Chamber of Secrets and Half-Blood Prince, and it's just
right.
And then for example, the first and seventh books.
Books 3 and 5 are the Sirius books.
Yeah, the books about Sirius and the Marauders and the Order and like the past history of like some of the teachers and adults in Harry's life. And 1 and 7 are just kind of like, the basics, I guess, like the fundamental like conflict of Harry and Voldemort and his parents and like, what happens with that. Obviously, there's other connections you can draw between the books. It's not like, 3 and like 7 are completely disconnected from each other. There's always going to be little connections between the books, but I've noticed that weird symmetry, and I think other people have too.
Yeah, I think it was probably intentional, honestly, but couldn't really say, I guess. So anyway, weird, Filch subplot aside, let's see what happens here. I pointed out the word tenterhooks. Let me see what the context for that was again. Okay, yeah, so Nick is saying, he's like, trying to get Harry to come to his deathday party, and he says, it would be such an honor if you could attend, Ron and Hermione are welcome too, but I dare say you'd rather go to the school feast. He watched Harry on tenterhooks. I had to look that up, like, it's just a phrase that means, I guess, like, what the fuck was it? I don't even know if I can explain it. Let me see it again. So a tenterhook is a hook used to fasten cloth on a drying frame or tenter. And yeah, it's when someone is in a state of uneasiness or suspense. I don't know, just, it's a case of just odd word choice. Nothing too special. So he goes back to the common room. He's starting to tell Ron and Hermione about what happened, but gets distracted because Gred and Forge they're feeding a filibuster firework to a salamander, which, at first I'm just imagining this as like, an actual regular lizard, and so I'm like, well, they're just gonna fucking blow up an animal. Like, that they're pranksters, but I don't think they're usually the type to just kill animals for fun. But
like the salamander is named after a different.
It's a mythological salamander that
like a fire lizard.
Right, and so this thing is like flying around the room emitting sparks. It's they're still torturing an animal for no reason, but it's not getting hurt. It's fine. It's a little weird.
I don't remember when is it Gred and Forge?
Well,
is it whenever they're like said to do something off screen or something?
Well, no, I've just been saying Gred and Forge because it's funny sounding, but
you don't always say that.
I don't know. I don't have a specific reason for it. They do say at that point sometime in the series, but whatever.
Yeah. So Harry meets back up with Nick, and Nick is like, "Did it work?" And Harry's like, "I guess." And he's just like, "Oh, fantastic. Anyway, do you want to come to my Death Day party?" Harry's like,
"Well, we've gone back a bit, but yes."
Have we?
Yeah, we already passed that.
Oh, was that already mentioned, like, before the Filch stuff?
That was the tenterhooks.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, the point is, because of this Death Day party, Harry ends up missing the Halloween feast, and I can't remember, is it Ron that mentions that he's like, oh man, there's like a rumor that Dumbledore has booked a troop of dancing skeletons. I'm like, there is no fucking way this is real. If it is, I have to see it. I have to know. There's no way, right?
Spooky, scary skeletons. Yeah, this
shivers down your spine. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I love this. They
This is the stupidest room.
yeah, they mentioned the Great Hall is decorated with live bats. Hagrid has these giant fucking pumpkins the size of sheds that have been carved into lanterns. And then, yeah, there's rumors that Dumbledore has booked some dancing skeletons. We never find out if the rumors are true, unfortunately. I would love to find that they were.
Yes.
That's the biggest tragedy of them missing the feast, is missing the dancing skeletons.
Yeah. Seriously.
So they go to they head down to the party, and this is the weirdest fucking thing. Like, so up to this point, and every other point in the series after this, whenever we're referring to the ghosts, they're basically just kind of regular people, but they're dead. Mm-hmm. And like they don't seem to have.
They're not like a distinct kind of people,
Yeah, and so like
they have like a culture.
There's ghost culture. They get greeted into this room. It's like the room is lit with black candles with like blue flames. It's extremely moody, and Nick greets them mournfully. He's just like, oh, "Thank you for coming to my party." It's like. He normally doesn't act like this, so I have to imagine this is like, this is what you do when you're having a Death Day party. Instead of being cheerful, you're sad. Like, is that? Yeah. So it's really weird. This place is just fucking bizarre. There's also this bit where Nick wants Harry to like, talk to what the fuck his name is, Sir Patrick, and like, let him know that I'm very frightening and imposing. It's like. Has there ever been a time where ghosts wanted to be frightening? Like,
man, I don't know. I assumed it was for the Headless Hunt, but I guess that's not really relevant, huh?
Yeah. But I like it's very like Addams Family, where it's just like oh well they're ghosts, so they this is what these are their values. So yeah. There's a band of...
I don't really have anything specific to add to this. Like, I'm just going to mention it because I think people will mention it in the comments otherwise. Just like, oh, Autumn, you have like a whole like ghost shtick. Yeah, no. I have nothing to add, really.
Okay. But yeah, they have an orchestra of musical saws. Do you know what those are?
Nope.
Because when they head into the room, Ron's just like, oh, is that music? And it's like... described as like the sound of thousands of nails on a chalkboard, and and they mention there's a band of musical saws, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but all I can imagine is like they're literally just sawing something and making a horrible ruckus with it. But I looked them up. It is a thing. You know how like stereotypical spooky music, a lot of times it'll have like the theremin. It's like. Yeah. Like, that's a musical saw. It's an actual saw that you play with, like, a violin bow. It's fucking weird.
Alright.
Apparently they exist.
Good.
And then there's a great Maggoty Haggis. I have nothing else to add to that other than that's a great phrase.
Yeah, it's just a nice, little... Great Maggoty Haggis. Like, it has a nice sort of,
Yeah.
What the fuck is it called? Like, meter to it?
That's on the table of rotten food, and, there's the ghost that just flies through the table trying to eat, like, a rotten fish. And they're like, can you taste it if you fly through it like that? And he's just like, almost.
Yeah, and they suspect that that's why they make it, like, so fucking foul and, like, smelly to just, like, to try to make it work.
But it still doesn't work.
I have to imagine it's just placebo. Like, anything they can sense.
It's kind of sad.
It's kind of weird that they can see and hear, but they can't... Like, why are those senses considered, not as corporeal as, like, touch and taste and smell?
Yeah, I don't know. Plus, I feel like there's got to be instances of them actually picking up, like, physical things. I don't remember if there is, but I'll have to keep an eye out for it, I guess.
Definitely not the letter, because that was a ghost letter.
Yes. We also have ghost horses, just to jump ahead a little bit, but while we're on the topic, like, the Headless Hunt, they come in, horns blaring, probably ghost horns, riding on ghost horses, and I'm like, are these the spirits of dead horses? Because like we learn later on that you can only become a ghost if you're like a wizard or a witch. So muggles can't be ghosts. Can horses be ghosts? Are these magical horses? I need an answer.
Yeah, yeah. That's another one for the list of questions for rolling, right? So there's among all these horrible foods, there's a gigantic grey cake in the shape of a tombstone with tar-like icing forming the words Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington died 31st of October 1492. It's explicitly mentioned this is his 500th death day party and that this is also Halloween. So yeah, this is the first, I believe, explicit in-book confirmation of the date.
I think so.
And
I seem to remember I seem to remember reading about that because like I wasn't part of the Harry Potter like fan base during the first few books, but apparently like this was seen as like the first instance of it's canon that this is 1992. We can figure out the rest of the timeline from here. What was your other question?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Oh, just is there any other mention of the dates that like corroborates it?
Probably. I don't remember exactly. I know that in Order of the Phoenix, the book starts out with a really bad drought and like heat wave, and that actually does line up with the year when that happened in real life.
Okay.
And there's probably Lillian James's tombstone. I don't remember exactly.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So, Peeves shows up. I don't know why he's here because he's not a ghost, but I guess he's like close enough. He has a revolving bow tie,
which is slightly amazing.
Yeah, I want one of those. Like, I have nothing else to add to it. It's just kind of an excellent visual.
Yep. And Peeves shows up and is like, fucking. Like, because Hermione's like complaining about Myrtle or something. And
yeah, I think she
"I
sees
heard
Myrtle
you."
in the crowd and like wants to avoid her, and has to explain who she is to Harry and Ron.
And then Peeves is like, "Oh, you don't like Myrtle, do you? Hey, Myrtle!" And she's like, "No, Peeves." And then Myrtle comes over and is like, "What is it?" And Peeves is like, "Hermione was just saying that you're like terrible." And Hermione's like, "No, I was just saying you're great and you're so cool and you look really nice."
Yeah, and she like elbows them in the ribs and is like, "Come on." And they're like, "Yeah, you do look great." It's very cartoonish.
Yeah, and I just noted that this is like interesting to see Hermione lying for what are essentially selfish reasons, because normally she's like super straight laced, but like between this and her like sort of childish crush on Lockhart, she's sort of becoming a bit more three-dimensional in this book, which is nice. Not everybody can be Little Miss Perfect all the time.
Yeah, Hermione's actually pretty judgmental. Moaning Myrtle kind of sucks, but it's like you gotta feel bad for her, but she does also kind of suck. But
she's like what, 15-year-old girl that fucking
killed her.
Died.
Yeah. Oh well, no, she didn't kill herself, but I think she was probably heading down that road. Killer? Yeah, that's the thing. I thought I forgot, but yeah. She's also like extremely derisive towards Luna later on.
Oh yeah.
So it like this is a character flaw of Hermione. Like she doesn't put up with people's shit very easily. And so yeah, I guess we're kind of establishing that a little bit here. So there's kind of just more random shit that happens at this party. It doesn't last for very long, but it's such a weird, unique setting that there are a few things to pick up on, such as there's like hundreds of ghosts that have been invited to this party, and I'm just imagining
like all over the country, right?
Yeah, I'm imagining like these ghosts traveling to get here, and like they can fly, they can go through walls, like there's nothing stopping a ghost that lives on the opposite end of the country or even mainland Europe or something just slowly floating to Hogwarts. But it's just a weird visual because like I'm not sure how fast they can move. Like I'm not sure if it's better to like do they have a height limit? Can they like get up really high in the sky?
Can they go to space?
And like well, I guess that too, but also I'm just like
they're obviously affected by gravity at least a little bit, because then they don't just fly off into the void of space as the Earth fucking whirls around the sun.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, what's the best way for a ghost to get from point A to point B without being spotted by people? Is it, do you do it in the daytime and kind of like go high up in the sky so that like you kind of blend in with the clouds and stuff? Do you try to do it at night? Can you go underground? Like, is that possible? Like,
God.
I don't know. We got questions. So, yeah, then we got the ghost horses.
That actually makes me think. Sorry, this has probably been mentioned, but like, why does Nearly Headless Nick live at Hogwarts? Not live. Why is he at Hogwarts? Considering there's no way. I don't think he was there when he died. Probably right. Like,
I would imagine probably not.
yeah, because he was like fucking executed. So
Also, I just remembered you pointed
just
out that
came in.
he died in 1492. When Columbus gave us a day off school. But,
I didn't point that out, did I?
well, you pointed that was the year that he died because that was on his
Oh,
tombstone
I see.
cake. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't remember if there's more than 4 ghosts in this castle. Like, oh, okay, well, other than Myrtle,
There,
because we
there
have
are in the movies. They're like floating all over the place, right?
right. Yeah, because we've got Myrtle, who just kind of died here and never wanted to move on. We have Peeves, who isn't a ghost, and then we have the 4 like house ghosts, and I don't really know why they're here, other than I guess just they want to
Hogwarts is a
pass
lively
on.
enough place, I guess.
Yeah, they want to pass on their wisdom to the younger generations.
It's a fair place to pick. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, did they die and they're like, huh? Well, I'm a ghost now. Well, time to go to Scotland. Like, what happened when they showed up? Was the headmaster just like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "We're gonna be here now."
oh right, I forgot about Professor Binns too. I like totally forgot he existed.
Oh yeah, there's a fucking ghost teacher.
That's just a weird
How do
case.
you pay a ghost teacher?
You don't. Dumbledore is cutting corners wherever he can. He's probably paying Hagrid with room and board.
God.
Doesn't
Anyway.
pay the house elves except for giving Dobby 1 galleon a
Oh
month.
Christ. Yeah.
Anyway, see, I just pointed out the Headless Hunt group are dicks because there's a bit where like Nearly Headless Nick is gonna say like he has like a speech he wants to give, and like he's about to go up on stage, and then and they all run out on their stupid horses and make a big deal out of themselves, and Sir Patrick is like super over the top, and he like keeps accidentally dropping his head and stuff to make people laugh.
While
it's
pretending to accidentally drop it.
Yeah. But then Nick gets up on the stage and starts doing his speech, and like as soon as he starts, the Headless Hunt people just immediately start dicking around and making a bunch of noise and like distracting everybody else. It's like they're such assholes.
This reminds me of the fucking Super Hot Via video, which I know Joel references, and I think you said you haven't seen it, right? But it's the one with like that's the wrong number. Whoa. I'm not gonna go too much into it, but it's like this stupid skit video of like a rap battle, and there's this one guy that just everyone around him like knows him and loves him. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's so great. This Super Hot Fire. He's won like literally 200 trillion rap battles or something, and like he's just like constantly cheating because they do rock paper scissors. The other guy wins. He's like, no, I always go first, and all this shit. He does his rap, and then it goes to the other guy's turn. He starts rapping, and everyone else just starts like playing rock paper scissors, and well, not even rock paper scissors. They're just like talking to each other and just like doing random bullshit, and they just start like dancing, and then like oh, you're still going. Oh, yeah, you're done. And you just go back to Super Hot. It's so fucking stupid.
God.
But that's what it reminds me of.
So,
I'll have to show you that.
but yeah, so various ghost antics occur. Nick doesn't get to tell his speech, and the trio are just like, we should probably leave. So they kind of they try to leave without drawing attention to themselves. Oh yeah, you didn't put this in the notes, but I like the part where Sir Patrick is like, Livens.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he notices that Harry, Ron, and Hermione are there, and he calls them Livens.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Um,
So they start heading back, And
Immediately, Harry starts hearing the voice again.
yeah, and it's at this point that I remembered, because he's out here like, yes, let me eat you, let me feed, I will kill you, and it's just occurred to me, like, not only has the basilisk been locked up in the chamber for however long, like 50 years or something.
Oh, it's been more than 50. Hasn't it been there since Slytherin made the chamber?
Well, what I mean is, it killed Myrtle. I assume it ate her body.
Maybe?
It's questionable, but the point is, it's been there for a really long time. It still doesn't get to eat here because the fucking book has a series of like near misses where it completely fails to kill seven different people who are completely alone in almost all cases. Well, not people, 7 different beings, I guess, because one of them's a cat, but it doesn't get to eat shit.
Well, no. See, the unfortunate thing is, it probably does eat shit. Like, we don't want to know about that, but that's probably what's going on. Yeah, this thing's been living in there for fucking hundreds of years. Like, unless somebody is like flushing chickens down the toilet, like, yeah, I don't know. The other answer that I like to imagine is, this thing's down in the sewer system or whatever, or at least has access to it, which presumably empties into the lake. So, like, I'm curious if there is, like, an entrance to the Chamber of Secrets through, like, some random pipe in the lake that nobody knows about because it's at the bottom of the fucking lake.
That is weird, because, like, to me, I always interpreted it as, like, the chamber, is completely sealed up except for the one entrance. Otherwise, the basilisk probably would have fucking escaped. It's not just gonna sit there just because it's like, oh, maybe one day someone will let me out to eat, Muggleborns. Like,
yeah, I don't really get that.
It would have escaped if it could, I think.
So I guess that's a case of, like, it's in the sewer system, but it's behind that, like, door that only opens if you tell it to open in Parseltongue or whatever, so...
Actually, now that I think about it, I mean, it goes through the pipes and out into
Which, first of all, these pipes are fucking huge.
They've got to be, or it's got to have the ability to shrink down somehow.
Condense its body to the size of an average household sponge and slither through the pipes like some sort of amorphous dolphin.
Hang on, if it can go into the corridors, though, surely it could just escape, now that I think about it. So...
Yeah, I don't know. But,
Oh, wait, no, that was only once the chamber was opened, right? In the first place?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, never mind.
So
it was trapped in there, and now it's just fucking around in Hogwarts trying to eat Muggle ones. Okay.
Yeah. Either way, what we've established is sewer system exists. Somewhere in here, there's like a magic door that is concealing this basilisk. Presumably, a sewer system also leads out to lake. Nobody has. The only entrance to this thing is through a fucking random bathroom. Mm-hmm. And this is completely off topic, but the idea of it having this other exit into the lake just reminds me of a part from one of the Indiana Jones movies where they, like, go through this, like, secret old tomb, and there's, like, a crypt and shit, and then they get through it and just kind of emerge through a random manhole in, like, the middle of a, like, outdoor seating area of a restaurant. So, like, presumably, not that anybody would want to go in there, but, like, if somebody did for maintenance, they could have just found this chamber that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's always weird to me.
I think it probably doesn't drain into the lake, to be honest.
It gets magically vanished, because that's what wizards do.
I think it does. I think it does. You can create magical artifacts. I assume that the fucking pipe system is just enchanted to get rid of the waste. Now, why it needs to go through pipes to do this in the first place, don't ask me. But...
That, again, that ties into the whole J.K. Rowling tweet, they used to shit their pants and vanish it. So, like... And, like, they didn't used to have toilets or something, and yet the castle had this shit installed before plumbing existed. I don't fucking know. Who cares?
Yeah.
It works.
I guess.
Yeah.
It was fine until she mentioned that you could vanish away waste, and then it's like, okay, even if they did switch to plumbing, why does it take it through the pipes first? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, so we have another instance of Harry being the stairmaster briefly because he's trying to follow this voice and he's running up the steps three steps at a time. And they come across there's like a whole bunch of water on the floor, which we find out later it's like right outside of Myrtle's bathroom. There's a message written on the wall. The chamber has been opened. Enemies of the air beware. Dead body of Mrs. Norris, not actually dead, but looks like she is. And then suddenly the entire fucking school arrives. Like, the Halloween feast is over and just everybody has to pass through this one corridor apparently. And
it's had to be close to the Great Hall somehow, I assume.
Yeah, so they see this, and then in the middle of a large group of students and probably teachers, like, Draco's just like, "You're next, Mudbloods." It's like,
yeah.
Draco, what the fuck are you doing? Like, he's always been an asshole, but he's usually, like, an asshole that knows when to strike. Like,
he only does it when
yeah, he'll be a dick when there's like no teachers around or something, or like if he knows he'll be able to get away with it. Like, even if there are no teachers in this group, he's surrounded by a large amount of students. Presumably, not all of them are raging pureblood like Slytherins, and he drops the M word in the middle of this, and like, everybody sees this message like, oh shit, dead cat, like, threatening message, and he's like, "You'll be next, Mudbloods." It's like, how is nobody beating him up? Like,
yeah, seriously.
Like, he said it at the frickin' Quidditch field in the last chapter, and like immediately everybody tried to fucking beat his ass.
Fred and George tried to engage in some Muggle dueling.
Yeah, and it's like, in that case, all he was doing was just using a rude word against one specific person. Here, he's specifically saying, like, "Oh no, you should all die." It's like, what the fuck is he doing? Why does he get away with it?
I don't know. Good shit.
And that's where we end.
It's kind of a cliffhanger, yeah. Just leads straight into the next one. So there you go. I guess we'll continue our thoughts about the stuff with like the writing and what this means and stuff. That all gets discussed in the next chapter. So, yep.
We have comments.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
This is the comment music. Comment music. Comment music added too early. Okay, I'll be done. Won't actually be done. None of this is getting cut.
Oh my god. So first of all, somebody suggested that maybe Neville got his his howler from his grandma because she magically knew that he had lost his remembrall. I think this was just a joke, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case.
So it was also mentioned, like, it would be like, it's not just that the wood is getting snapped and it's like damaged, but also there's like a magical core in the wands when it comes to sorry, I said this kind of backwards, but with regards to Ron's broken wand, like, presumably the thing on the inside is damaged, or at least like poking out. So I don't know, it's wands are weird. I don't know how they work.
Nobody does. They make no sense.
With regards to Lockhart, like, apparently being all about, like, harmony between magic and non-magic peoples, somebody suggested that, like, maybe it's because he wants, like, an even bigger audience. That would be funny. And, like, yeah, that'd be funny. And we talked about how, like, Voldemort, like, ended up going to Morgan and Burke's despite everybody, like, thinking he was going to go do great things, and then, turned out, like, super evil. And there's just a joke here that I enjoyed, which is working evil wizard retail for however many years will do that to a man. Which I enjoy. And the other one I want to mention is somebody else said that howlers could potentially be used for reasons that aren't yelling at somebody. They're basically just voicemails. Um,
Very,
oh,
very loud ones.
yeah, they're very loud, but presumably you could send one that isn't screaming at the top of his lungs and is just speaking aloud for like sending a message to a blind person. So fair enough, I guess.
Maybe.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to respond to here.
No comments on whether or not howlers count as whimsy, then, I suppose.
There were actually. Somebody said they think it's not.
Okay. But
So, yeah.
does Malfoy getting away with yelling slurs in a crowd count as whimsy? No, I don't
Oh
know.
my god. So let me see how many pages the next set will be. Okay, the next two chapters make up 30 pages total, so we can probably do that.
The next two do? Okay.
Yeah.
I imagine at some point we're going to have a one-chapter video, probably, the climax, but...
Yeah, probably. So yeah, join us next time for what will likely be The Writing on the Wall and The Rogue Bludger.
God, I forgot about that one.
Mm-hmm. We've got the return of a truly excellent character.
Yeah. Anyway, see you then, and over.